kitchen. So many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Welcome and Happy New Year. My name is Dilip Barman. Welcome to our January show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. So Many Cooks in the Kitchen is a monthly show we've been doing for, it's been 2.5 years. We're all Physicians Committee Food for Life instructors. We teach courses to keep us healthy that are evidence-based and focused on healthy nutrition, easy foods to make, and tasty foods. So independently of our Food for Life classes, a number of us do these monthly shows. And today's show is called So Much Citrus. Citrus is one of my favorites, and I know my fellow cooks in the kitchen were happy that we picked it. But they were a little surprised because my favorite citrus is still a little later in the season. We're still early in the season. But for what I'm making, cooking with citrus, I'm going to be using navel oranges, which aren't my favorite. They're kind of mild in flavor, but they work well for the dish I'll be making. There's about 9 of us, I think, cooking today, and some of the dishes we'll be making are sweet potato and lime soup, Clementine Peel Relish from India, it's a South Indian dish, lemon cookies, grapefruit cake, and I'll be making orangey potatoes and tofu. This is a dish I made up a few weeks ago, and I hope you'll like it. It's pretty easy to make. So I think we all know citrus is great. We hear that it can help keep away the cold. It turns out it doesn't really prevent the cold, but it can shorten the length and severity of a cold. It's a wonderful source of vitamin C, and it's a great boost for your immune system. It actually encourages the formation of white blood cells, and of course white blood cells fight infection. Citrus is a great source of antioxidants, especially as you have deeper colored citrus and phytonutrients. Now, one small caution is citrus is acidic, and so you'll want to gargle or maybe brush your teeth after enjoying some citrus. So the dish I'm making uses Yukon Gold potatoes, which you see there. And what I did is I chopped the Yukon Gold potatoes into about 1/2-inch slices. And I soaked these. These are starchy. These aren't as starchy as some other potatoes, but I soaked them for about 1/2 an hour, and I rinsed them a few times. And now, I don't know if you can tell, but these are dry. They're not sticking to each other, which is really nice. Potatoes that are starchy can stick to each other, because starch, of course, provides some stickiness. So I've done that, and I've squeezed the juice of one of these oranges. Here we go. And I'm going to start by mixing in some spices. I'm going to start, and by the way, we have the recipe for you, and hopefully one of my colleagues will put up the link to the recipe. We've already posted that. So all these recipes are freely available. So I'm going to be adding some cornstarch, which will thicken my orange juice. Okay, there goes the cornstarch. And I'm going to be adding some garlic powder. I'm just going to estimate, but all the quantities that I recommend, are in the recipe document. When I develop recipes, I do measure for your benefit, but when I cook, I generally don't measure. It's okay to measure, but I generally don't. Okay, so here's some smoked paprika, which adds a neat flavor. This goes really well with citrus. It's kind of a surprise, but smoked paprika and citrus is quite nice. A little bit of sesame seed. Now, you can use black sesame seed, which is a really great source of calcium, but I'm just going to use white sesame seed here, just a little bit of sesame seed. Okay, and then some salt, and instead of using regular salt, I like this smoked sea salt, so let's use the smoked sea salt. Okay, there we go. I like fresh ground salt, and then I'm going to use a fork to whip this. And you can see that the color of the orange juice is changing. It's becoming a little bit paler. And it should dissolve pretty easily. Okay. You can add other spices that you like. A little bit of black pepper would also be fine. We're going to be baking, so you might think of something like, for example, orange essence, but this is going to be baked. And so if you like that idea, then just a few drops of orange essence on top of the dish at the end may be okay, but it doesn't really need orange essence. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is, there's my orange juice with spices. By the way, feel free to make any comments, and we have 2 giveaways, which we'll be doing at the end. You can ask questions. After my segment, I'll be able to answer them. I have colleagues. Some of my colleagues will be answering them now. So during the Q&A at the end, if you ask questions, we will have some giveaways. But ask questions at any time. I'm going to put the tofu in the orange juice mixture. If I had time-lapse photography, I would walk away for half an hour. And maybe we should do that sometime. We can start our cooking and then switch to another cook and then come back if we have things that are marinating. We've never done that. But anyhow, I'm going to let the tofu pick up the flavors of the orange juice. You know what I'll do is I'll actually switch containers. Okay, I'll put this in here. Okay, just dump it in there. Okay. So what I did with the tofu is I cut open the tofu, I discarded the water. You want extra firm tofu, water packed, and then you can use a tofu squeeze or just use your hands and squeeze out the water. I do it just for a few minutes. Some people use a tofu squeeze and let it squeeze for 10, 15 minutes. And then I'm putting the tofu into the marinade to pick up flavors. Again, ideally let it sit for half an hour, but we don't have half an hour. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my slices of potato. Okay. Now, if it's still a little moist, this is not moist, then you can use a paper towel and dry it off. My hands are clean, I'm simply going to put the potato in the marinade. Now, potato doesn't absorb a lot, but it will pick up a little bit. And what I do is I try to leave a little pool on the top, and I put it on my baking tray. Like that. I'm going to do this with all my potato slices. I'm going to reserve 5 of them, and I'll tell you why in a second. I'm going to need that bowl again for that purpose. Basically, I'm going to bake the potatoes. You need to preheat your oven to 400, and then bake it. I already made this dish, so I'll show you the finished product. So far, easy peasy. It's really easy to be plant-based. There's so much evidence. It's the best thing you can do for your health. It's the best thing for the environment. It's the best thing for animals. So if you aren't plant-based, hopefully the recipes we're providing will give you a good start to try eating plant-based. We teach in our Food for Life program and in So Many Cooks in the Kitchen, we use no added fat. Or if we use fat, it's usually very little quantity. And why no oil? Because oil is pure fat. We recommend 10% fat calories. There are other credible nutritionists who go a little higher, but everybody does have a limit on the fat. And if I'm going to eat some fat, I'd rather it be something luscious like chocolate rather than olive oil. Tell you what, I'm going to reserve some bigger pieces of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, but let's put the other potato in the baking sheet. I've lined my baking sheet with parchment paper. That's a nice trick. It makes cleanup easier. Parchment paper is meant to withstand high heat. You don't want it to touch an oven element because then it could come to a flame. So parchment paper is really quite nice. Okay, so there's all my potato. Okay, and now I'll take my tofu, which has been marinating just for a minute or two. So ideally yours has been marinating for longer. And if you have an air fryer, you can actually segregate the tofu instead of cooking it with the potatoes and air fry the tofu to get a nice crispy tofu. I guess you could air fry the potato too. but I like, if you do air fry the potato, cut it a little bit thinner so it gets nice and crispy. But with baking, I actually like a thicker cut for the potato. You're going to find in this recipe, I hope I remember to mention in the recipe that you can check it. I recommend, I think it's 20 minutes, and then you flip the ingredients, and then 15 minutes more. Just put a fork in and see if the potato is done to your to the degree you would like. Okay. And if it's not, you can cook it a little bit more. An optional ingredient, which I may not have included in the recipe, but it adds color and is quite nice, is you can use a bell pepper if you'd like. Okay. Chop that, and that won't pick up the marinade, so you can just put it on the baking sheet, or you can just chop it fine and put it raw at the end. And then with my remaining marinade, I'm going to take a bowl which is about 5 inches, and this looks like it's about 5 inches. And I'm going to put my remaining marinade in. And I'm going to put my 5 slices of potato. Now this is a trick I came up with when I developed this recipe, because I was wondering, should I cook the potatoes moist in the marinade or just having dabbed it? So I'm doing both actually. When this bakes, this is going to become gelatinous. And I've done this a few times. The first time I did it, when I took it out with my spatula, it maintained its shape and looked really pretty. But the second time, it broke up a bit. It doesn't really matter, but it's kind of fun to put on top of the dish. And then when you eat, you get these chunks of gelatinous citrus with spice. It's pretty nice flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the oven. I'm going to bake both the tray and the bowl. And then I'm going to flip the ingredients. Oh, and one more thing is I took my orange that I fresh squeezed, that I made fresh squeezed juice from, and then I roughly chopped the orange, and I'm going to put the orange on top of the ingredients, face down, so that more citrus flavor gets imbued while it's cooking. When it's done, it won't look great. The orange, the peel will be slightly burnt, and you can, at that point, compost it, because the citrus has done its job. It's given you a lot of its flavor. So this is what it should look like when you put it in the oven, plus this bowl. Okay. And let me show you what it looks like when you're all done. So this is it. Now again, the citrus peel is burnt. It's done its job. It's past its prime. It's given its all, so we can remove it to see what the dish itself looks like. So I'm going to remove the citrus. Thank you, citrus, for sharing your wonderful flavor. You can go into my compost pile. And then what I did is I had chopped a red onion, and I sprinkled the chopped raw red onion on top. I don't have chives, but some finely diced chives would be really nice with this. And then what I did is, you can see the gelatinous portions. Let me get my spoon. This is the part from the bowl. You can see how it has a texture. It's basically a chunk. And when you bite into it, you can cut this into pieces, or before you serve it, you can chop it. And you can even distribute the gelatinous part. And you can serve some fresh herbs on top of it if you would like as well. So this is my orangey potatoes and tofu. It has a rather mild flavor. I like it. If you want to jazz up the flavor a little bit, you can make a little dressing. Try a little orange miso. You can blend some miso with some orange juice and maybe black sesame seed and some garlic, and maybe drizzle a little bit on to add a little bit more flavor. But this tastes good. It's a nice, somewhat subtle flavor, but tasty. And if you want, you can use tangerines instead of oranges. So orangey potatoes and tofu. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce my friend Susanna Dickman in Indiana. Susanna is going to be making a fennel, apple, and orange salad. Take it away, Susanna.
Thanks, Dilla. Your recipe looks so good. I can't wait to try it. Hi, everyone. My name is Susanna Dickman, and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. Thank you for joining us on this, at least here in Evansville, beautiful sunny day. Today, I'm going to make orange and apple and fennel salad. I don't know if you're familiar with fennel, but fennel, if you smell it, it has just a light licorice kind of smell, and taste. And it is just, it's like a marriage made in heaven when you put fennel and orange together. So fennel and orange and then apple are going to be the star of our salad today. This is a quick, easy salad. It's great for fall and winter because both, we know oranges, apples, and fennels are in season and they're in abundance and at their freshness peak. So if you're not familiar with fennel, you will typically buy it with these fronds attached. And you can see I just cut them off because we're going to use this part for our salad. But you don't want to throw away the fronds. You want to save the leaves. You can chop those up and put them in your salad for added flavor. And the stalks, I will chop those up too and then add them to my freezer bag of onion peels and other, potato peels and other things so that I make a vegetable broth. And it adds that added depth of flavor to the vegetable broth. So if you haven't bought fennel before, if you haven't purchased it, go out and find it. It's in the stores now. This was a nice big organic one that I was able to find. And I just like to sometimes just smell it because it smells so good and it tastes so good. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to cut my fennel. And as I said, I cut off the prongs and then I wash this just like I do my other veggies. And now we're going to cut it in half. And just like kale, just like cabbage, you can see the stem part, okay? So I'm just going to cut that out because we don't want to eat that part. It's going to be really hard. And I'm going to go ahead on the bottom here and cut and take it out. And that's all I need to do. So then I'm going to slice this in just a minute. Let me go ahead and get this one out too. There we go. We're going to cut this side. So just like you're cutting out the core of a cabbage. Very similar. And now I'm just going to slice my fennel thinly so that it's going to go in my salad. I'm going to turn it this way. There we go. And as I'm cutting this, I'm just getting the aroma of the licoricey kind of taste. It's just really good. You can eat fennel raw, as we're going to do in this salad today, or you can cook it. Sometimes I like to, when we make cabbage or other vegetables, I just like to add some fennel. So let me go ahead and get the rest sliced. This is a really big one. And I think I see I'm going to cut off a little bit more of the core there. But let's just get this sliced. And then we're going to add our ingredients. This is probably going to be the longest part of this recipe, is just cutting up your ingredients. Okay. Some of these are a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to make them smaller. There we go. All right. You can see I have a couple of big pieces here. And these, just like with when you're cutting other things, sometimes you don't get them, the bottom is holding it together. So let me go ahead and put this in. This is going to make a salad enough for about 6 servings. So it's really going to be good. And just a little bit about the health benefits. We know the health benefits of citrus, have vitamin C, and which helps with immunity. So we want to make sure that we're getting a lot of vitamin C. I'm going to go put in my oranges there. Fennel is also high in potassium, so it's something that we want to eat. It also helps you, the vitamin C in both fennel and orange just help you, help your body absorb iron more, so that, if you're anemic, having some vitamin C is going to help your body absorb iron. Okay, so we've got in here so far our apples. I used about 3 medium, Gala apples, or you can use a Macintosh apple. And then I'm going to put in some red onion. Okay, first thing I'm going to do now is just kind of mix this up. And then we're going to add some seasoning. And then I'm going to add some romaine lettuce. But look at this. I just love how beautiful it looks. And you have, you know, almost all the colors of the rainbow. You have some of the green from the fennel, white, the purple and the orange, and the red from the apple. Just so good. The dressing that we're going to use, again, is really simple too. This is a tablespoon of orange juice concentrate. So I did let it thaw. I just opened up my container of orange juice concentrate and took out a tablespoon and let it thaw out, but I did not dilute it with water. And I'm going to put that in. Again, we're getting a little more added vitamin C. And then in here, I have a half a teaspoon of cinnamon and a half a teaspoon of salt that I'm just going to put on there. And we're going to mix it again. And then we're going to use a romaine lettuce this morning. You could use a butter lettuce if you want. I like romaine because it adds, again, just another crunch. But this is so simple and so beautiful. This would be a great dish to take when you're, going to a potluck. I would just go ahead and leave out the lettuce until it's time to serve. So I've got some romaine lettuce now that I'm just going to chop up, and we're going to add that to our bowl. Sometimes I just like to cut it a little bit in half so it's not as thick. And then we're just going to chop it in little strips and add that to our bowl. And we'll serve up our salad. More added nutrients. I think this was about 1 head of romaine. I think I'm just going to, you can add as much or as little as you want. I hope that you try this salad. I hope that you try fennel. And, when you have fennel, always just mix it again with your citrus. All right, let me mix this up so that we'll get the romaine incorporated in there. There we go. A little bit more. I'm trying to get it all the way from the bottom. Again, we eat with our eyes, and when I see a bowl of all of these different colors, it makes me, just want to dig in and eat them. All right, I think we've got it pretty good. I'm not spilling too much over here, but let me do one more toss. I'm trying to get it all the way from the bottom. All right, there we go. And let me go ahead and put some on my plate. I'd like to make sure that I've got a little bit of everything. Some fennel that I can see there, some orange, and some romaine. Now you can add some more romaine if you want. I still have some in my bowl that I didn't add as much to. But I don't know, that maybe looks like 2 servings to me. I don't know. I'm going to try it, and I want to make sure I get a piece of the orange and I'm going to find an apple and a piece of fennel. Probably shouldn't take a bite on camera when there's so much to chew, but oh my goodness. Just the depth of flavor, the licorice from the fennel, the tart and sweet from the orange, and then the apple is sweet. This is definitely a great, great salad. So I hope that you go ahead and buy a fennel bulb and try this apple orange and fennel salad and enjoy it. Let me know if you do. You can follow me on eatplantsbewell.com and on Facebook to see the upcoming classes that I have, and enjoy this day wherever you're watching from. Next up is Mark, and Mark, I always love to see what you're making. It's all yours.
Wow, Susanna, that looks fantastic. As always, your salads are just wonderful, yummy. I love citrus salads, nice, fresh, brings a little bit of summer into our Midwestern winters. So, Mark Cirk-Venick here from Let's Eat Great Food, and you can find me at letseatgreat.com and all my tours at Veg Johnson Journeys, or on letseatgreat.com, or on Facebook you could find me at Let's Eat Great Food. So today I'm doing something a little different. Maybe you haven't heard of this type of cake, but it's a grapefruit bundt cake. Say that 10 times fast. Grapefruit bundt cake. So a little bit different. You might think grapefruit's kind of a funky taste. It can sometimes be sour, sometimes be, really bitter. But if you get a nice grapefruit, nice fresh one, nice ripe one, you could go ahead and make a lovely cake. And of course, we're putting a little bit of sweetener in this cake. So I've got the cake all finished here. And if you go on my Facebook page at Let's Eat Great Food, you'll see some of the preparation steps that led up to this beautiful cake in front of us here. So of course, this is 100% vegan. It has no eggs, no dairy. And what we've made this with is a very light, soft wheat flour called Warthog. It's a organic flour that I get from a local mill. If you go to Janie's Mill, Google Janie's Mill, and they have wonderful organic flours there. I grind my own flour, and I just believe the flavor is just a heck of a lot better and fresher, and I know exactly what's going into my flour. So one of my passions is making bread and cakes and things like that. So, but this is called Warthog. You want to use a light flour, a soft berry, if you will. This is made with the entire whole grain, so not only the husk or the bran, but the germ as well as the endosperm. So the entire berry is included. The entire wheat berry is included in this cake. So again, to replace any of our typical animal products, we're using flax eggs. There's some vanilla in this as well as plant-based milk, and I'm using agave syrup. You can use, you can certainly use date syrup or maple syrup. It's going to change the flavor a little bit, so I'd probably stay away from that. I'd want to use more of a neutral sweetener. Or, if you have a really sweet grapefruit, leave the sweetener out and rely 100% on the grapefruit. So that's absolutely fine. And our leavening agents are baking soda and baking powder. So again, the cake's all completed. And what I'm going to do for you is finish the cake off. I'm going to make a little bit of a glaze. And the glaze, what I've done is taken small saucepan here and put in 100 mils of water, 50 grams of agave syrup, and half of a grapefruit. So there's the half of the grapefruit that I've pressed. And you can see this is a pomelo grapefruit, nice and pink. Smells absolutely wonderful. It's nice and soft when I picked it up. It's a little bit on the sweeter side. A couple things with respect to the actual recipe itself. So the recipe calls for a 45-minute bake time. Depends on your oven. Start watching it about 30 minutes. Ours baked pretty quick. It baked about 30 minutes. And the other thing is it calls for 320 grams of date or agave syrup. I cut that in half merely because I didn't want those as many simple sugars in that. I would play with this, test this out before you serve it to guests. You know, people often give us feedback on our tours, how wonderful the food is and how tasty it is and everything. But what I've got to tell you folks is we test these recipes no matter what. Whether they're written in a cookbook or they're on the internet, especially if they're on the internet, I find that a lot of times recipes aren't tested or just don't meet my standards of flavor palette. So my suggestion is, if you want to serve your guests phenomenal meals, is that you test those recipes ahead of time. Make them, adjust those to your palate. Because I don't serve anything I don't personally like to my guests on tours. I'm sure you wouldn't want to have people over at your house and serve them something that you're not familiar with. So the biggest no-no that I think you can make is make something for the first time for guests, because you really don't know, you know, what that tastes like. And you know, despite it might be in a world-renowned cookbook, it's still, you know, recipes are guides. So what you do here is you go ahead and you're going to glaze this, and I'm just going to pour this right over the top of our cake. And you see it's still a little hot. You got to let that soak in really, really, really nice. And I don't mind if it's like a puddle in there, and just let that soak. The longer it soaks, the more you're going to get more flavor induced in this. I'm not going to wait 10 minutes and make you sit here and listen to me babble on for 10 minutes, but I am going to soak my cake really, really nicely and take a big bite for you all. Oh, that's terrible. I always wondered if people would really ever say that. No, it's really a very, very good cake. It's light. It's got that little hint of citrus. I'm gonna kind of rip off the back piece here. There's some extra juice kind of laying in the bottom there. You're gonna see that kind of dripping off there. It is just such a lovely, light, citrusy flavor. Again, that's a grapefruit cake, grapefruit bundt cake, and you know where to find the recipes. And if you want to see the prep of this cake, go on my Facebook page again at Let's Eat Great Food. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Cody Stubbe, over also in the Midwest, and she's making some wonderful lemon cookies, and hopefully we see one, if not all, of her daughters on with her. Take it away, Cody.
Hey Mark, that grapefruit cake looks fantastic. I bet my kids are gonna love to try to make that real soon. Thanks for sharing that recipe with us. Welcome everybody. I'm Cody Stubbe. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska. This is my kitchen. Today I'm gonna make lemon cookies, and what I love about this recipe is that it's only 3 ingredients. The kids love helping me make it. It's one of their favorites as well. And it's one that you can also kind of change up the recipe ingredients a little bit. And the only ingredients that we need is almond flour, a lemon, and some maple syrup. So I use an organic lemon because I'm going to use the zest off of it. And it makes about like 1 tablespoon or 1.5 tablespoons of zest. So you just very carefully, without grating your finger, you're going to go around and get all that zest off. And this is what it looks like. It makes your kitchen smell really good and refreshing. So I'm just gonna put this in my bowl. I already have 1 cup of almond flour in here. So I'm just gonna put that in there. Perfect. And a lot of times the zest will accumulate on the back of this. So I'm just gonna scrape that off. I like to get as much zest as I can for more of that wonderful lemon flavor. All right. So I like to also mix this up, the zest with the almond flour first, so it can kind of get nicely evenly dispersed. And it just, like I said, it smells really good in here, and kind of get the chunks of your almond flour kind of broken up a little bit. Then I am going to go ahead and cut this lemon in half, and I'm going to juice it. So just be real careful not to cut yourself. You can use a cutting board. Sometimes I just hold it and cut it in half. Wonderful. Okay, I got this nice little juicer. I just stick it in there, and I like to do it in a bowl. That way, if any of the seeds fall out, you can catch them before they get into your actual mixture here. So sometimes it may squirt out at you. There we go. And this does a really good job. I always like to, though, give it one extra little squeeze just to make sure I get it all. And I only got a few extra drops. That's telling me that this works real nice. Okay, I'm gonna do the other half. And there's definitely some seeds in here. There we go. Nice. And it did a good job catching them before they came out. There we go. Okay. Lemon juice all over my hands, lemon juice on my counter. It's all right. All right, so there we go. There's the lovely organic lemon juice. And again, we don't like, you know, we want organic if you're gonna use the outside of the lemon because you know then you don't have all those chemicals, okay? So dump that in there. And one more liquid ingredient is gonna be about 1/4 cup of maple syrup. I try and use just a little bit less than that. I'm always trying to skip down on my sweets a little bit if I can. All right, and then you just mix it on up. Pretty simple. I think that's one of the reasons the girls like it so much. They can just really whip it up. Nora likes to help out with the zesting. All the girls actually do. And of course, everybody likes to eat the dough afterwards. They like to lick the spoon or the fork. You could probably try this with a different kind of fruit. I kind of wanted to try strawberries and see how that would work. But one of these days, maybe that would be a good summer recipe. All right, so you just make your dough like that. These would be great, or this recipe would be wonderful to double or even triple because this kind of makes a really kind of a small batch here. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little mini scooper about this size. These make nice little cookies, so you could do one even smaller than that. If you do one about this size, and this is probably like, about 1.5 inches in diameter, this will get you about 8 cookies out of here. So if you want to do a smaller diameter, then you can probably get a good dozen out of here. And I use a piece of parchment paper for my baking. And you want to have your oven set about 350. You're going to cook these for about 13 minutes or until you see the tops kind of start getting golden. And then you can pull them out and you want them to completely cool on the rack or on the sheet before you take them off because they're soft on the inside. But they're really tasty, very flavorful. And I just make this nice and flat. Just go along and scoop them all out. And then, like I said, the girls usually like to help, and usually I put 1 or 2 of them in charge of squishing it down with a fork. And you just kind of go crisscross on the tops. And if you find that your forks are sticking, you can dip your fork in just a little bit of water, and that will help out with that. So. Okay. There we go. Yep, looks like I got about 8. Okay, and then you're just gonna crisscross the tops. They're sticking just a little bit. You can also just kind of hold it down with your hands. Your fingers will be sticky because of that maple syrup. All right. There. And that's what they look like when they're ready to go into the oven. So put it in there. And then I actually had some already done. So this is what they look like when they come out. These have cooled. And as you can see, the edges are just a little bit golden, but let me tell you, these are delicious. They remind me of lemon bars, like the flavor, it's nice and strong and delicious. So anyway, cheers to you guys. Give it a try, tell me what you think. And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on over to Jonan, who's gonna make a butternut squash with orange and sage. So thank you for joining me. Bye.
Hi Cody, that was lovely recipe of lemon cookies. I'm gonna have to try it because I'm not much of a cookie baker, but that seemed like something I could try. It was even easy for me, I think. Hello everybody and welcome to my kitchen in Abu Dhabi. Isn't that nice that we can go all the way from Omaha, Nebraska to Abu Dhabi in just a jiffy like this? Technology is awesome these days. Our theme today is citrus, and I have chosen oranges for my recipe, and I will be sharing a fun way of using oranges in a nice sweet and savory recipe. Being winter, we also have butternut squash. This is what remains from what I've done. And the recipe has also some carrots and shallots and garlic and some sage, caraway seeds, salt if you're using, and pepper. Also there is maple syrup. It's one of the champions in the recipe. I have it here to show you a little bit. So this recipe comes from Ottolenghi's amazing book, Flavor. It's one of my favorites because, as the name, everything you make from that book is just amazingly flavorful. They're just such masters in blending and pairing and all the processes they use. Anyhow, I love it, and oh, sorry, I have to let you know that I have the remains of a cough from a flu I had a few weeks ago. So I may be coughing as we talk today. Anyhow, I broke this recipe into 4 steps, more or less. The recipe and the ingredients are in our recipe booklet online. And while I say that, I have to also remind you, I think, that at the end of the show we will have Q&A. So I've broken the recipe into 4 steps. In the first step, basically, we chop the vegetables. The butternut squash you can cut in half, and then if you want in quarters like I did, it just makes it easier for me. But and then you cut them into about a 1/2-inch slice, and gone. The carrot, if you have good organic ones, you don't have to peel them. But I peel them, and then you cut them also into 1/2-inch slices as well. Then you mix your veggies together with the spices and herbs and salt and pepper and the chopped, half of the chopped sage. In the second step, I cut the top of the garlic and the top of the shallot and wrap them in foil, and you put them all on the veggies that you've cut and tossed. You put them on parchment paper lined oven-proof trays, and this is the design you get afterward. I love I call them my roasting designs. So I had all the veggies here, and I also on the side put the garlic and the shallots, and stuck them in the oven for about 25 minutes until the veggies were nicely roasted. When you take them out, you can leave the garlic and the shallots in the oven to further cook them until they're really nice and smooshy. I kept one here. You can see how smooshy it is. And because later they have a different role. So I did all of this last night because I had some time, and this is a good way to break it in pieces, and on the day when you're going to serve it, you can just put it all together. I had roasted my veggies. In the second step for me, I zested 3 oranges, and the fun thing is that 1 orange gives roughly about half a teaspoon of zest. And I use this little nifty thing. I like it better than the ones that sort of like a, what do they call it there? They're like a grater thing, but I like this better, easier for me. I zested the oranges, all 3 of them, and then cut them and juiced them to get roughly about 3/4 of a cup of orange juice. Then you mix so you keep your zest and you put your orange juice and about 3 tablespoons and a teaspoon worth of, it's 45 milliliters in metric. You put them together in a small pot and you reduce it until it's all it's like a thick balsamic vinegar or sticky maple syrup. So if you can see it, it's dripping rather slowly. This reduction is essential in the recipe. And then I made the cashew cream. The cashew cream recipe is also in our recipe booklet. And for this recipe, we keep the cashew sour cream, a little thick because we need it to be the base of our pizza-like dish. Once you have your sour cream, you add to it the orange zest and the remainder of the finely chopped sage, salt and pepper, and you mix it all. You put really abundant pepper. I like it that way, but adjust it as you wish. So this thing, you can make a little more and save some of it as a dip. It's amazingly tasty. How can I explain to you? It's got the burst of flavor from the orange zest when you bite into it, and then the salt and pepper and the wonderful freshness and earthiness from the chopped sage, blended together with the creamy cashew sour cream. It's just an amazing dip, but also makes the amazing base for our dish. So you have things ready. You've put your veggies in the oven and you bake them, roasted them. And when they come, you wait till they're cooled a bit. And then you can use a ready made pie crust or some kind of ready whatever you want, or you make it yourself. I'm not very, I don't like detailed cooking. I like things to be quick. So I used wraps. These I would like to show you. They're very, very thin wraps. And they call them mountain bread here. So it's something like this. It's sort of like a Turkish yufka. Very thin, very pliable, amazing. Very few ingredients, just water, flour, and salt. And they're low in everything and high in nutrients. So I love using them. I don't like the very oily ones. Anyhow, use what you think would work. I've used this. I put it, it's still hot. I took it out of the oven. So I put parchment paper into an oven-proof dish. So this is it, guys. Look at that. This looks lovely. recipe. It's very easy. On the bottom I have my wraps, and as I said, you could use whatever pastry that would work well with a sweet and savory combination like this. So I put them there. I put the sour cream as a base, topped it with the already roasted vegetables, and then before you put it in the oven, you use the maple syrup reduction, you drizzle it over, and then you put it back in the oven for 20-25 minutes till your pastry is nicely cooked. And then, before serving, it is suggested that you decorate it with a few more leaves, fresh leaves of sage. They're very aromatic. And voila, here you are. And I would like to just cut it a tiny bit, because I'm going to later serve this for dinner to my husband, as part of the dinner. I just want to get a taste of it so that I can explain to you how amazing. You see a lot of butternut squash here, but when you eat it, there's an amazing burst of flavor from the orange zest and the maple and orange reduction. All of it combined with the savory cream and the earthy flavors of the butternut squash and sage. This is just really, really awesome. I recommend that you all try it. And just a tiny bit about the nutrition. Butternut squashes are filled with vitamins and minerals and fiber and iron. And so together with the orange and spices, you're also getting an amazingly healthy dish. So I hope you will try it. And this is it from me today. Apologies for my coughing. And now I pass the baton on to Angelita in Greenville, in South Carolina. So amazing that now we're coming from Omaha to Abu Dhabi and all the way to South Carolina. Take it away, Angelita, and bye everybody. See you next month.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Angelita Alvarez Hughes. I am in Greenville, South Carolina. I am a Food for Life instructor, and I have been part of the Food for Life So Many Cooks in the Kitchen for over 2 years, and I'm so excited to be part of this. I just absolutely love it. I learn something new every single segment, and John, I just want to say thank you so much for that butternut squash. It happens to be one of my favorite squashes, so now I have another way of making it, so I can batch cook it and have it for lunch during the week. So today I'm going to be making a sweet chili lime sauce with tofu bites. And you can use this sauce with the tofu, or you can use it over noodles, potatoes, steamed vegetables, as a dressing over some rice bowls, as a dipping sauce. I mean, you name it. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But because the recipe takes a little bit longer, I've already went ahead and I air fried my tofu, and the recipe or the instructions are in the recipe page. So I've already done that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to add aquafaba, which is chickpea water, to the pan. And the measurements are in the recipe as well. I like using aquafaba in this particular way because to me it just gives the onions and the spices and the chili just a little bit of a better flavor and texture to me. You're more than welcome to use just water, or you can also just use vegetable stock or mushroom stock, whichever works best for you. So we've added I've added the aquafaba to the pan. And aquafaba, you can also use this as, you can whip it up and it's like egg whites. So you can use that as a dessert as well. So I've done that as well. And I believe Mark made something using aquafaba. It's in one of our past shows. So anyway, once this gets heated up, we're going to add, excuse me, let me get this back to my spoon. Okay, we're going to add our onions. And we want to bring these to a nice little, we want to bring this to a simmer because we want these onions to kind of start getting translucent. And then we are going to add our lime juice. And I've got my lime juice right here, but I was going to show you real quick how I zest my lime. Some people zest it like this and you hold it over something. I don't like to do that because sometimes I can't see how deep I'm going. So I like to hold my lime like this and my microplane this way. And then I pull towards me. Because every time I pull towards me, I can see exactly how far I'm going down in there. And once I've taken all the zest off, I just take this, put it down like here on my little dish. I don't know if you can see this. Hold on, let me move it over here. And then just with my finger, push it down because none of the sharp edges are exposed, so there's no chance of me cutting my finger. But remember, don't touch the front part. So that's just another little way that I do it. It just helps me kind of gauge how deep I'm going into the zest. So we're going to add our lime juice. We're going to add our lime zest. And okay, we're going to let this cook a little bit. Now you're going to add your garlic. You can use fresh garlic or you can use garlic powder. It's whatever you have available. And again, the conversion is in the recipe. Oh. Excuse me, got a little bit of humidity on it, so I have to kind of move it around. All right, and we're only going to let this cook for about 2 to 3 minutes, not any longer. Now, lime juice or limes have a lot of vitamin A. They have some vitamin C. It also helps aid in digestion as well. And because I am Mexican, I put lime juice in everything. Even my corn goes great on that as well. So once we get this down, it's been about 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to turn our heat down to medium-low. Now we're going to add our chili flakes. Depending on how hot you like it, so if you don't like a lot of heat, just add 1/4 of the amount, and then once it's cooking, when it's towards the end, you taste it. If it's not spicy enough, then you can add a little bit more with the chili flakes. If you like it really hot, I found this is cayenne pepper. I found this at my local Korean market here in Malden, South Carolina, and I love this stuff. It is really spicy. I kind of went overboard a little bit the first time I used it, but now I know better. All right, so we're going to put that in there, and then we're going to put dried cilantro in here. And I found dried cilantro leaves. All it is cilantro leaves. I don't know if you can see. At the Dollar Tree. So $1.25 for dried cilantro leaves. Or you can do them yourself. You can dry them yourself, dehydrate them yourself. If you grow them, sorry, I just realized I didn't put the other part of my lime. Well, it gives me a chance to show you how to use this. So you put your lime face down. And then you squeeze it in there. If you don't like lime, you can use lemon. You can also use oranges in this. That would be great with it as well. Myers lemons would be great. All right, so we let this cook down. Sorry, I have to read my recipe. Now we're going to turn it down to low. Right, and now we're going to add our rice wine. And we're going to add our maple syrup. This is what's going to give it the sweetness. If you don't want to use maple syrup, I did try it with date syrup. It made it just it gave it a little bit of caramel tones to it, which was actually really good, but it was just a little bit too sweet for me. But it was not bad at all. It was actually pretty good. All right, so we're just going to stir this, and then we're just going to let this cook down. Once this is well incorporated, and we start seeing that it's starting to reduce, then we're going to add our tofu to this. Or you can use the little potatoes that you've roasted, and you can put those in there and then just let everything cook together until it reduces into a syrup. One thing I do with my tofu, I do it both ways. You feel free to do it however is best for you. Is once I've air fried my tofu, I just take a skewer and I just put little holes in there, and then I put those in that so it'll absorb even more of that syrup. Like I said, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And if you're going to use this as a dressing, or you're going to use it as a glaze or anything like that, then you wouldn't put your tofu in there. You would just let this reduce, use till half the liquid is evaporated, and then let it cool, and then you can store it in the refrigerator for about 3 days. You should be fine with that, so that would be no problem. Right, so these go in here, and then we just keep turning them. And what I do is I bought these cute little parchment paper liners off of Amazon, and that's what I put in my air fryer, and then I put my food on top of that to air fry or roast, so that way it kind of just helps me clean up. So that's all we're doing. That's all there is to it. And like I said, you just kind of keep turning it and stirring it. This will take about 8 to 10 minutes. But I promise you, it's worth every bit of it. So that's about it. That's all I have for you guys today. And I want to thank you for spending Saturday with us. Don't forget to stay till the end for Q&A with Dilip and the rest of the gang. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that we can. And if we can't answer a question for you, we will definitely get back to you with an answer. Again, thank you so much for spending Saturday with us. And up next, we have Nancy, who is going to be making a sweet potato and lime soup. So that sounds like a yummy combination, so I can't wait to see what that's about. Again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Saturday, and I wish everyone happiness and good health. Bye.
Thank you, Angelita. Your tofu bite looks so delicious. I'm Nancy Manifold, and thank you for joining me. I am making a sweet potato and lime soup today. And I find at this time of year, when it's cold outside, and certainly it's very wet and rainy outside, having a nice warm soup is it's just so comforting and makes a great lunch or light dinner. So that's what I'm making today. And I have here the vegetables that I am starting with. So I have 2 onions, white onions. White onions are a little bit milder in flavor. I should probably put my reading glasses on, otherwise I'll just be in tears here. So what I'm doing to make this easier is, rather than chopping them up, I'm just putting them in the food processor. And for this recipe, it's just much faster. So I have 2 white onions. I have 2 carrots, which I'm doing the same, chopping them up into big chunks. There we go. And here I have a 1/4 of a celeriac. So this is celeriac before it's peeled. It is arguably the ugliest vegetable around, but It's very nutritious, and it stores well as well, and it's delicious. It's part of the celery family, so I'm just chopping this up. If you're allergic to celery, then you won't be able to have celeriac either. I'll talk a bit about it in a few minutes while I'm sauteing these vegetables. So I'm just turning this on. Doing a quick pulse. There we go. And it saves a lot of time not having to saute. Now, it doesn't always work. You don't always want it, your vegetables, ground down to this degree. But if it's a soup that's being pureed in the end, then it actually doesn't make any difference. It's absolutely fine, and it's a quick time saver to do it this way. So what I'm doing is heating up some water. For those of you, I'm going to saute the vegetables. For those of you who have seen some of these So Many Cooks in the Kitchen classes, you will be familiar with the fact that we cook without oil. It keeps the calorie count down, and for the calories that you get in oil, you're better off using, for the nutrients that you get in oil, you're better off using water. That's just heating that up. There we go, and putting in the vegetables. There we go. There we go. So, quick and easy way to chop up the vegetables. As the water evaporates, which it will, just add a little bit more. So have some water ready here, and just add a little bit of water. And what you will find as well is the vegetables gradually release their water. So getting back to the celeriac, yes, it's not the most beautiful vegetable, but it stores well. It can store about 8 months at 0 to 5 degrees, so basically in the fridge. It's an excellent source of vitamin K, which is important for healthy bone development and healthy blood clotting. As I say, it is part of the celery family, so if you're allergic to celery, then this is not an option for you. Historically, apparently, celeriac is one of the oldest mentioned vegetables. It is apparently reportedly mentioned in Homer's The Odyssey from 800 BC, so it's been around a long time. And what I have done is I've just taken a quarter and just chopped off the outside, the gnarly sort of part of it. Okay. So here I have the carrots and the onions and the celeriac, and I'm just gently sauteing this for a few minutes. And as I say, if it's at low enough a temperature, it gradually releases the water from the vegetables, and you can cook it in that. There we go. Now, once those vegetables are sauteed, I will add some turmeric, but first I will show you the sweet potatoes. So the sweet potatoes I've cooked in advance, and I'll be adding them to the soup in a bit. So the sweet potatoes are incredibly easy to cook. All I have done is put 2 sweet potatoes, rinse them and dried them, wash them and dried them, skin on, put them on a baking sheet with baking parchment, and put them in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. There's no need to pierce them or do anything. And here they are, already cooked. And I will put those in a bit. I'm going to take the flesh off, take the skin off. I'll leave that there. I don't want the skin in this recipe. There we go. So I'm just getting everything ready. There we go. So once the vegetables are cooked for a few minutes, then I'm adding the turmeric. So just a 1/4 teaspoon of turmeric, gives a nice flavor. And I'm going to let that toast and cook in there for a minute. go. Okay. And now I'm going to add some vegetable stock. I've got some low salt vegetable stock, 750 mils, which is 3 cups of vegetable stock. I'm putting that in. And a small amount of salt and pepper. I have a half a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon of pepper. That is obviously a very individual choice, and if you prefer to leave that out, then that's absolutely fine, obviously. And letting that simmer, and this is when I put the sweet potatoes in. Sweet potatoes are a fantastic source of vitamin A, which is important for eye health. And I'm putting those in. 2 sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes make a great snack as well. It's always it's a nice idea to have cooked sweet potatoes ready in the fridge, because you can, once they're cooked, you can just reheat them and put some chili on them, anything like that. And they are very low in fat and high in fiber, as are all of these foods. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I won't do it now because it will take too long. But what I would do is let that simmer slowly with the lid on for about 15 minutes. And once that is done, I'm adding some cashew cream. So this cashew cream, I have blended a cup of cashews with a cup of water in a high-speed blender, and it creates a creamy mixture, if you can see that. Now, the recipe, so I'm putting this in here, the recipe originally called for coconut milk. And what I often do is, instead of coconut milk, I substitute cashew cream. Coconut milk, first of all, not everybody always wants that coconut flavor, but also coconut milk is very high in saturated fat, whereas cashew cream is very heart healthy. It's high in mono and polyunsaturated fats. Now, it is high in fat generally, so if somebody is wanting to keep an eye on their weight, or if they have type 2 diabetes, you will want to limit the amount of cashews or any other types of nuts or seeds that you have. But in this recipe, certainly, it is a much healthier substitute for coconut cream or coconut milk. And I think it has a much nicer flavor as well. And then the last thing I'm adding is the pièce de résistance, is the lime. So I'm going to zest the lime. It's a very simple recipe, but what I love about it is the lime cuts through the sweetness of the carrot and the baked sweet potato. And I haven't actually garnished it with anything because I feel that garnish would actually detract from the light lime flavor of this. It really is a delicious soup, I have to say. So put the lime zest in. There we go. I would add that at the end. So for the sake of time, I am adding it in while it is still, excuse me, cooking. But what I would do if I had more time would be to cook the soup and then add the lime in at the end so that the flavor is fresh. There we go. And I'm juicing the lime and putting the juice of an entire lime in there. And I have to say, it is one of the most delicious soups I've had, with the earthiness and the sweetness of the carrots and sweet potato and celeriac, and just the lightness, the sweet sharpness of the lime. It really is delicious. So what I would do once I've let that cook for about 5-10 minutes is blend it with a hand blender. I won't do that now, and this is the soup that you end up with, which is very simple looking, but as I say, I don't tend to garnish this soup because it tastes so nice as it is. I don't want to mask any of that nice lime flavor. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so I'm losing my voice. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'm handing you over now to Shobha Swami, who is making Clementine Peel Relish. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. I am Shobha Swami. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, a Food for Life instructor. And as you've seen, just amazing recipes today. So today we're going to get started on something that we make very often. It's called the orange peel relish. Let me get a couple of oranges for you to show. I have a couple of oranges here. So typically I'll use clementines, or these are even mandarin oranges. You can use any one of these. I've cut the entire orange, or sometimes if you have kids that love to eat oranges, you can save the peels. What I do is save all the peels in a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator, and then at the end of the week, you can get to make this. So today we'll get started on making this relish. It's a favorite at our home, and it's available. It's a dish from southern India, that is Karnataka, a state called Karnataka. And I come from a city there called Bangalore, and we make this quite often. So also in our neighboring state of Tamil Nadu, it's a relish that can be used either as a dip or as a sauce or as a chutney. So you get the idea of how to use this relish, which I'll go over more at the end. But today we'll begin and get going. So I've got this pot going on the stove top. So I'll add just a couple of tablespoons of water. And to that, I'll be adding all the orange zest or orange peel. This is not just zest, it's the entire peel, the white part and the orange part. And the little bit of flavoring that the white part of the orange peel gives out adds an amazing flavor, because it's now balanced with all the other spices that we're going to use today. For some reason, I have so many lights here, but I don't know why my camera decides to go really dark occasionally. So please bear with me. So we'll get this going on the stovetop. And it doesn't take but about 2 to 4 minutes to cook this down. And the peel should just be lightly steamed. We don't want to overcook it. And to this, the spices that I'll be adding today, I'll go over most of them. So the main spices are cumin powder that everybody has available at all grocery stores. And then I'm using red chili powder. You can use cayenne pepper powder, or you can even use red pepper flakes. That's absolutely fine. And then I'm using a little bit of turmeric. As you all know, turmeric has antibacterial and properties of preventive and restorative. So you can use turmeric in pretty much all Indian dishes. So I'm adding just a hint, maybe perhaps 1/8 to 1/4 teaspoon. And the flavoring that we give this today is coming mainly from the cumin powder. So once this gets cooking and it comes to a light boil and the peels are just cooked and they're just tender to touch, to eat, we'll be adding our spice powder. These are all optional, and you can combine any one of these that I've mentioned. So it's a combination of sesame seeds and coconut. Those two are the main flavors, and the other, the mustard powder and the fenugreek powder. The fenugreek is a little bitter, so you want to be careful how much of that you add. And so these two are the main flavors. If you don't have sesame seeds at home, you can absolutely use a tablespoon or so of tahini, and that works absolutely well. Or instead of tahini or sesame seeds, you could use even flax meal. And then the coconut powder is just either coconut powder or desiccated coconut. That's, finely grated dried coconut. That's what that is. So this is the thickening agent, this coconut and sesame or flax meal that we are adding to it. So it gives it a nice thick sauce, and it all comes together really, really well. So cumin powder is your, flavoring agent. Along with that, you add a little bit of sesame and a little bit of coconut powder, and this gives an amazing flavor. The cumin and the sesame and the coconut all come together, and then all you have to do is in a hot pan, add all these finely powders together, close it, and it just let it simmer in its latent heat. You don't have to turn the stove on at all. And then you get this amazing relish that can be eaten, like I said, with bread. It can be used as a spread, and then you can use it on a bagel to chop it off on your hummus. And the orange peel gives it an amazing, refreshing flavor. So oranges are available in plenty. So you make these out of clementine peels and the mandarin peels, not so much the orange peels, because the orange peels are much thicker and have the more of the white portion, that is the pith, and that's slightly bitter. So make this often. Use it, and you can even use it to layer a pita pocket on the inside with this. Use it as a relish. It stores in the refrigerator for more than 10 to 12 days. So I typically make a big batch of it, and then my husband and I like to eat it with everything. So if the food is not spicy enough, we say, oh, bring that orange relish on. Let's add some. So you can, and I've also made salad dressing with this relish. So what I do is take a teaspoon of this orange peel relish and add a tablespoon of water to it. So it kind of thins down nicely. And then I pour it all over my salad, like shredded cabbage, radish, tomatoes, cucumbers, all of this. And it tastes amazing. It adds this orange burst of flavor, and it's absolutely awesome. So try this, make it at home, and enjoy. Okay. And I'll stick around for the Q&A after this. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. As I said, I'm Shobha Swami. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I teach at Morehouse School of Medicine. We teach cooking classes alongside Dr. Rook. So a huge shout out to Dr. Jennifer Rook, who's a whole foods plant-based doctor here in Atlanta. And we have about 80 people attending classes every single Wednesday. Reach out to me if you want to attend one of those classes. They are free on Zoom. And now we are moving on. I'm going to hand over to Carolyn Strickland. She is in Montgomery, Alabama, and she's going to be making today grapefruit and frike tabbouleh salad. I'm sorry. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about this frike. Go ahead.
Frika salad. Yes, grapefruit and frika tabbouleh salad. So thanks, Shobha. Nice to see you, my neighbor 2 hours up the road in Atlanta. I'm in Montgomery, Alabama, and I'm a Food for Life instructor here, teaching lots and lots of Food for Life classes here in Montgomery. And today, like Shobha said, I am making a grapefruit and frika tabbouleh salad. So if you've ever had tabbouleh salad before, probably it had tomatoes and parsley and scallions and bulgur wheat. So I'm making it with frika today instead. You could use bulgur wheat if you want to. So bulgur wheat, there's a lot of different kinds. So this one is an organic bulgur wheat that's tan. Most of the time with bulgur wheat, you can just pour out as much as you want to use and pour boiling water over it and let it sit for 20, 30 minutes, check it and see if it's tender yet, and drain off the rest of the water. It really doesn't have to be boiled. This is another kind of bulgur. This is a red bulgur from Bob's Red Mill. And this one is actually a whole form of a whole grain. But most of the time, bulgur wheat has been parboiled, which is why you only have to pour boiling water on it and let it sit for a while. Where frika is actually kind of like a smokier version of bulgur wheat. So it's actually already been, it's like a green form of wheat so it's not completely ripe yet. It's harvested before it's totally ripe. And then it's parched, roasted, and rubbed. And so you do actually have to cook it, but not for very long, 20, 25 minutes. That's it. So it actually has a huge amount of fiber and protein and magnesium and iron and zinc. And it's just really, really good for you. So we're going to go with frika today, just because it has more protein, more fiber. So we're just going to go with that one because it's also a little bit different flavor profile. It has a smokier flavor than bulgur. Really like it. And it's great serving next to beans in a bowl, or anything that you would use a whole grain in instead of rice. Maybe you could use bulgur. You could use the bulgur, or you could use frika. So give it a try. I actually found this one on Amazon. It's kind of hard to find locally. I'm in Montgomery, Alabama, so we don't have as many options as in bigger cities. So I got this on Amazon. And we're making it with grapefruit because tomatoes are not in season in January in the Northern Hemisphere. So if you are in Australia, then you could probably make this with tomatoes instead. So, but we're using grapefruit because it's winter and grapefruit are in season right now. So we're going to start with the grapefruit. So I have, if you can find ruby red, and I thought that's what I bought because it looks like ruby red on the outside, but they're actually pink. That's okay. So, but it makes a prettier dish if you can find ruby red or pink instead of white, but either way. All right, so let's see, where did my knife go? Here it is. Okay, so we're going to start with, I'm going to show you how I cut the grapefruit to get the most out of it. So what we're going to do is start by cutting off. Whenever you cut anything round, especially, you want to make sure there's a flat side so it doesn't roll while you're trying to cut it. So we're just going to cut the top off, make it flat on that side, and make it flat on the other side. Set those aside. And so I have it flat now, flat top and bottom. And then starting at an angle away from you, going around the grapefruit, you're going to cut the skin and that white part off called the pith. The pith is bitter, so you want to remove that. And I'm just cutting around. Like that. And I got most of that pith off, but you can kind of pull some of it off with your fingers too. And then we'll flip it over. Oh, I didn't get all of it. So we'll cut down from that side too. So remember, it's flat on both sides for this reason right here. So it's not going to roll while I'm cutting it. Okay. And then we're going to cut it in half, because it's going to be easier to pull it into sections and find the seeds, because you know grapefruits always seem to have seeds. So I'm going to take it and cut it around the equator right here, all the way through. And that way, when you open it, you can see all the sections and find all the seeds. So I've already cut this one in half. And then I'm going to take a bowl. So I've already got most of the grapefruit cut up. For this, it requires 2 grapefruit and all the juice. You want the juice, because the juice is what's replacing in traditional tabbouleh salad the olive oil and lemon juice. So we're using grapefruit juice. So I'm just going to pull it apart with my fingers like that over the bowl. So you could cut it apart if you want to, but I don't recommend holding anything in your hand and cutting. That's just not a good idea. Too many accidents happen that way. So just pull it apart with your fingers, and you can remove the membranes if you want to, because they're a little tougher. And as you're pulling them apart, you're going to get a lot of juice coming out. That's what we want. So catch the juice in your bowl. And if you can pull the membranes off, that's fine. You don't have to. All right. And we'll get the rest of that section. So this is 2 whole grapefruit. And then I already cooked the freekeh. Actually, it was just half a cup of dried freekeh, but it soaks up so much water that it ends up looking more like 2 cups worth of freekeh. So I did a half a cup of freekeh and 1 1/4 cups water. So I'm guessing that probably totals 1 3/4 cups of freekeh that I have right now. All right, get that all pulled apart. Oh, goodness. That doesn't want to come apart. Okay, so it's pulled into sections with all of the juice, and I'm pulling the membranes out because they're a little more tough to chew. And then you could hold them up and just squeeze any remaining juice out of them once you've got the membranes out. And then we're dumping all of that grapefruit, so 2 grapefruit worth, into a bowl with all the juice. There we go. And then a big spoon. And we're adding the freekeh that I already cooked. So it looks like that. It even has kind of a smoky smell to it. So it's a little bit different than bulgur. You could use bulgur, remember. So do that if you can't find freekeh. And it ends up being about 1 3/4 cups to 2 cups worth of cooked bulgur or freekeh. And then we're adding a cucumber, 1 cup worth of chopped cucumber. Here. and 1 can or 1.5 cups of chickpeas, and about 1/2 cup or more if you like parsley. But remember, tabbouleh salad traditionally has lots and lots of parsley, so you could go 1/2 cup or more if you want to. Get all that parsley out of there. And we have, this is an optional ingredient, an avocado that's been chopped up. So you do not have to use avocado if you're trying to watch your fat in your diet. But it's 1 avocado for the whole recipe, and the whole recipe serves 6, I think. Okay, and I actually drizzled a little bit of the grapefruit juice onto the avocado to keep it from turning brown. So, okay, getting it all mixed up. That looks really good. And then 2 more ingredients. We have 1/3 cup of chopped scallions or green onions, and a couple of tablespoons of mint. So this is fresh. You want to go with peppermint, not spearmint, because spearmint will make it taste like gum or toothpaste. So peppermint is more of the kind of mint that's used in cooking. So go with about 1 to 2 tablespoons of mint. And I used this really handy little herb chopper, which I think I've shown on here before, but it has several blades, and you just put the leaves of whatever any kind of herb in it, and it cuts it up really into little fine ribbons for you. So it's a handy little gadget my mother gave me. And a little salt and pepper. So we'll do a little bit of fresh cracked pepper over it. And just a pinch of sea salt. Make sure you're going with iodized sea salt. Iodine is a really, really essential ingredient for your thyroid health. And then mix it all up. It's just so beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. That is a really, really pretty dish. So I can put that right there so you can see how pretty that is. That is just gorgeous. Lots and lots of colors and lots of fiber, lots of protein, super good. And just a little different from your traditional tabbouleh salad with tomatoes. So, like I said, add more parsley if you really like a tabbouleh salad heavy on parsley. I think tabbouleh salad traditionally is like a parsley salad. So you can add a lot more if you want to. And then add more grapefruit if you're interested in getting more of that citrus in there. But that's plenty of grapefruit. I think it's a good balance right here. So give it a try. And I would love to know what you think if you try it. And we're going to go to Q&A. And today, ask a question, and you will be entered in the drawing. And we're giving away a subscription to Veg News Magazine and a citrus zester. So, but you have to ask a question during Q&A to be entered in the drawing. So I'm going to kick it back over to Dilip, and we'll start our Q&A.
All right, that looks really good, Carolyn. I have a few questions for you. And your mom actually, I don't know if Brian passed them on to you. Your mom asked a question, but it was answered. Where you get your freekeh from. And there's Nancy. Welcome back, Nancy.
Hi, Dilip.
Hi. Hi, Shobha. It's like Shobha's returning to her kitchen, and there's Susanna. So great. Very nice show. You guys all know that I'm a big fan of citrus, and so I wonder why it took so long for us to have a citrus show. And somebody, I can't remember who it was, suggested, why are we doing it so early in the year? Because this is still early, at least in North Carolina. And there's a citrus that probably all of you guys know that I love called Triple Cross. And my daughter was telling me yesterday that she was saying, Daddy, you probably are the single biggest individual consumer of Triple Cross in the world. And I think she might be right. She claims that the co-op I buy it from, I buy, like 25-30% of their, or maybe more of their Triple Cross. So I don't know. So we should, guys and gals, we should probably do another citrus show, maybe next February or March when there's even more to choose from. Just imagine all the great items we'll have. Karen is not going to be, hasn't joined us in the shows. I think one of her very first ones she's missed. Susanna, can I deputize you to keep a list of everybody who asked questions from this point forward? And then
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And then when we do the drawing, I will take the names and pass them on to Karen to fulfill. We have two wonderful prizes. We have a citrus zester, and I don't zest enough because I have a rather small zester, and I got some great ideas, especially from Angelita. I loved how she zested. And I loved Cody's zester. Nancy did some really cool zesting. So Shoba also did some zesting. So I need to do more zesting. Okay, so here I have some questions, but some questions are coming in. The first question comes from Infinite Love and Gratitude. Would farro be a good substitute for freekeh? So,
Sure.
Carolyn?
I think you could cook some farro and then cool it. So when I cooked the freekeh earlier, it's been cooled for a few hours just at room temperature. So traditionally, tabbouleh salad is served at room temperature. So I would just make sure it's nice and cool before you start adding all the other ingredients. But yeah, any whole grain, really. I mean, play with your food. Any whole grain, try it.
Krista made a comment. This doesn't count as a question, so you need to ask a question, but I'm glad that you and your partner won a prize for a magazine, and you got the first issue last week. It takes a little while for magazines to start, so I'm glad that, that wasn't so long. You won in December, so I'm glad. Question from Kathy Sabo. So Susanna, Kathy Sabo. If an orange gets frozen, will it thaw and still be good to use in a recipe? Sure. So what I would do is the freezer can dehydrate it a bit. I would peel it. You can freeze the peel, and then I would put the frozen, and this is also a good time to tease out the seeds. I'd put them in a plastic bag, get rid of all the air. I think I've done it maybe once. I just go through citrus so fast, so we don't have frozen citrus in my house. One thing I did last year, you guys may know that when we did our So Many Fruits show, I demonstrated a peach ice cream. So one thing you can do with frozen fruit, and it works great with strawberries, works great with mangoes, works okay with blueberries. It actually works really well with watermelon, is if you have a high powered blender, and if not, then just put small quantities partially defrosted. You put the fruit and maybe a favorite plant milk or a favorite plant creamer. And so last year I did so many things with Triple Cross, and one thing I did is I made some Triple Cross ice cream, which my family likes Triple Cross. They thought the ice cream was okay, but I really liked it. Okay, so Kathy, that's the answer to your question. Linda Pittman, what is your favorite salad dressing you make with citrus and no oil? Let's see. Shoba, would you like to take that? And I have an answer as well.
I do too.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Citrus salad dressing. Typically, you can make citrus and sesame seed dressing, ginger, citrus, sesame seed, just these three. And of course, you can add a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of balsamic vinegar to it, and it imparts an amazing flavor. Sesame seeds and citrus combination makes an amazing salad dressing. That's quick to just put together. You just mix all these ingredients. You just use the sesame seeds that you buy at the store. You can lightly roast it, or even you can use it raw. It's and it comes out really, really good. So try one of those. Those are quick to put together. Yeah. Or you can use tahini as well. If you don't get sesame seeds and you don't have it at home, you can use like a small teaspoon of tahini.
I have two suggestions. One suggestion is miso. Miso is high in sodium, so watch it. Don't use too much of it. But I occasionally blend some miso with some black sesame seeds. This is actually a recipe that comes from Physicians Committee. It's one of the Food for Life recipes. So some miso with some black sesame and some lime and water, and it's an excellent dressing, no added fat. But here's a simpler dressing. My parents are from India, and I grew up with my dressings. I don't know about today in India, but back then dressings were not really used. At least fat-laden dressings weren't used in India. And so my mom would serve salads with just a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of salt to cut the lime and black pepper, and that's it. And that's what I usually do. That's my standard dressing. But one thing that I sometimes do is I'll make, especially with a chopped dressing, like maybe some tomatoes, a little bit of avocado, some olives, is I'll put a little bit of maybe umi plum vinegar, just a little bit. Again, in the Indian palate, vinegar, at least for me, didn't grow up with it, so it doesn't suit me. But I do like umi plum vinegar in small quantities. And vinegar, by the way, and other acids are really good for stimulating absorption of vitamins from, for example, beans. So a little bit of umi plum vinegar, and then a citrus, and you could use some lime, some Meyer lemon, some triple cross tangerine if you have it, or any kind of tangerine or orange. And Carolyn, you were going to share something too.
Really simple dressing. 3 tablespoons of orange juice, 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar. It's delicious. Just whisk it up and pour it over your salad. It's fabulous.
Question came in for Shoba. So Eileen is asking, Shoba, where do you find coconut powder, and is the relish good as a jelly for a peanut butter and jelly or other nut butter sandwich?
Absolutely. The relish will be good for, let me answer the latter question first. It'll be amazing for peanut butter. But bear in mind that this is on the, tangy, spicy side. It's citrus and spicy. But the same can be, you can use paprika instead of the cayenne pepper or the red chili pepper, so tone down the spice. And you could also, what I forgot to mention in my video is you can add some chopped dates to it or chopped apricots to it, and that would give it a slightly sweet flavor. But where do you buy coconut powder or coconut? You get dried coconut, unsweetened dried coconut at the grocery store. You can buy those. They come in long, grated flakes kind of thing, and you can powder it in a dry blender. Don't go too far on blending it because it'll start releasing its oils, just like all nut butters and others. So just make sure that you pulse it a little bit just to break it down enough to get a coconut powder. Yeah, that's the best way to get that.
Question came in from Lee. What was the cookbook that was mentioned during the butternut squash recipe? I think who remembers what the cookbook and whose recipe was that? I can't remember.
Yana?
Yanin.
Janin.
I didn't catch the cookbook. It wasn't Ottolenghi Plenty cookbook on her counter. I might have the same one. Just a double check.
Okay.
Okay.
And by the way, Lee had another question, and that was, I'm sorry. And this was about my recipe. I love the potato and tofu recipe. Is there a way some vegetables could be incorporated? Yeah. So if you start including things like broccoli, then I would jazz up with a little bit more of dressing. This dish is good. I find it's a little bit subtle. I invented it and I like it. I don't think it has much flavor as some of my other recipes. And so, and if you look at the recipe document, I recommend that you consider adding some sort of a dressing, including a miso citrus dressing. But yeah, if you include something like broccoli, then I might even go so far as to have a light vegan cheese dressing. Take a few cashews. We've made vegan cheese dressings, a little bit of cashew and nutritional yeast, some garlic, some salt, some water. I think that would be really good. And then Anne isn't asking a question, but she's commenting flavor title. So I think there it is.
I think that was the cookbook that was
on
Jonan's counter, which is Ottolenghi flavor.
And then infinite love and gratitude. Nothing wrong with a savory, spicy PB&J Sammy. That sounds delicious. Thanks for asking, Eileen. Great idea. Okay, Jeanette has a nice question. So for the soup, and welcome, Jeanette. I don't recognize your name, so maybe you're one of our new folks, so thanks for joining. Could you use pureed cauliflower or white beans for a substitute for the cashew cream in the soup? Who wants to take that one?
Well, shall I answer that? Because that was my talking about. I think the white beans especially, I think they would both work very well. The cauliflower might turn out to be a little bit watery, but not necessarily. But the white beans, I think, would puree quite nicely and do the same thing.
Do.
That's an excellent suggestion, Jeanette. Thank you.
Yeah. And that's actually a great point, that any excuse you have. So this is our power plate, right? So fruits, grains, legumes, and vegetables. Legumes include beans and lentils, tofu, tempeh. Any excuse. So if you have, for example, finicky eaters in your home and they don't like beans, beans are just a nutritional powerhouse. This is a great way. Just blend a little bit of white beans. Nobody will taste the difference, but they'll get the nutritional benefits.
Absolutely. And I use roasted cauliflower as well. So sometimes to make things creamy, and that works out very good as well. I just cut up the cubes, roast it in my, little toaster oven or air fryer, and then puree them to make. Yeah, I even make the white sauce with it.
And Jeanette, That's great, Jeanette. Did you see the presentation my daughter made on the 6 Million Seed Summit? So I'm glad that 6 Million Seed Summit was great. We really enjoyed presenting. And if you saw us, then you saw my daughter make lasagna. Let's see. Oh, my friend Katja is here. Hi, Katja. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in quite a while. So Katja and I used to run into each other at the co-op when we'd shop. So would you consider lime interchangeable with lemon? Yes. And so it's really a different flavor profile. And some people have, I think I'm a super taster. Like you and I, Katja, have talked about alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, right? So when some people buy wine, to me, it's all spoiled grape juice. I just don't appreciate it, right? But I do appreciate, fruits, vegetables. I appreciate foods. And to me, there's a big difference between lime and lemon, but they're different, but they're similar too. And so one thing my daughter and I sometimes make is we make lemonade. Actually, we make it fairly commonly, and we prefer limeade. So lime tastes better. It's generally more expensive. But you know what I think is the best choice is something called Meyer Lemon. And the store, Katja, that we shop at, Weaver Street Market, is the only one I know that not often, but they do have organic Meyer lemons. We try to buy organic. So yeah, you can interchange lime with lemon. Thanks for asking. It's good to see you, Katja. So let's add Katja's name to the drawing. Okay, I asked that question, substitute for a lighter soup, not so much fat. Yes, I try. Okay. Oh, good. Jeanette, you tried my daughter's lasagna. Excellent. I'll tell her. She'll be delighted to hear that. Hi, Katja. Okay, question from Susan Hansen. So let's add Susan. You got Katja on the list, right? Susanna?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Susan Hansen. We were gifted 24 limes yesterday. I wish you were my neighbor. Can we juice? Absolutely, and freeze them, or should we just give some to our neighbors? Suggestions welcome. One thing my wife does actually when I buy all the citrus, lemons and limes, she often squeezes them in our citrus juicer and puts them in a bottle. So when you're cooking, you just pour what you need. You don't have to squeeze it. So yeah, 24 limes won't last that long if you're a house like ours. So yeah, I would juice them. And if you are meager with using your citrus, feel free to freeze it. It'll freeze beautifully. There's no problem. Mix it and then freeze it.
Mhm.
Okay. Thanks for asking.
I freeze them in ice cube trays also.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. Yeah. Let's see. Any new questions that have come in. So while we're waiting for more questions, I have some questions for you guys. So Shobha, talk more about some of the spices. So when we have friends who have babies, I typically bring food over, and I often use fenugreek because fenugreek helps stimulate breast milk for new mothers. And I'll bet you there's a lot of other health benefits. So did you want to share anything else? I personally don't like the taste of fenugreek. And when I cook with it, I use just a very small quantity to avoid the flavor. I think just a small quantity to me tastes good, but more than that, it's too much. And so I don't use it that often. When I use it in very small quantities. Can you tell us some of the other benefits of fenugreek? And one another comment is sesame seed. Black sesame seed is a better choice. It's higher in calcium, but it depends on what I'm making. I find white sesame seeds, regular sesame seeds, cook better. So did you have any comments about black versus white sesame seeds and fenugreek?
Yeah, I agree with you that black sesame seeds have more nutritional content than white sesame seeds. But you can use them interchangeably. The black sesame seeds are a little stronger flavor than the white sesame seeds,
Okay.
and I use them not quite interchangeably, but for special recipes, I use black sesame seeds versus white sesame seeds. And then about fenugreek seeds, very true, very true. They are a little bitter. You should use them in very small quantities, less than 1/4 teaspoon, I think, measure as well. And then one good tip for lactating moms would be sprouted fenugreek seeds, or even just soaked fenugreek seeds. You soak them overnight and then just chew on them and bite into them, drink the water as well as bite into the seeds. They're not as bitter once they're soaked, but you can also sprout them and use them in salads, and they're not as bitter at all once you sprout them.
I have a question for Susanna. It's kind of a gross question. So I also love romaine lettuce. And I'll tell you an interesting story. I was at a conference in Florida many years ago, like 25 years ago. And one of the things we had to do at the conference is all pitch in. And so I pitched in the kitchen. And I lived for a very short time in Florida, Central Florida. And so I had to prepare the romaine lettuce. And one reason I rarely buy romaine anymore, I buy it if it's pre-washed, is I had this big thing of romaine and I was chopping it and rinsing it and all. And I chopped the end of this romaine and there was this huge cockroach, a dead cockroach in the middle of the leaves. And that gave me, it caused me to say, let me stay away from that romaine lettuce. And of course, it's hard to avoid insects.
Right.
So that's just, my experience. So do you want to share anything about how you clean romaine lettuce?
Well, and I haven't had that kind of insect in my romaine, but during the summer and fall, we have a farm share, and they are they maintain organic farming. So I will oftentimes find a worm or something like that. Thankfully, they all seem to be dead already when I see them. I just make sure, as always, I chop off the end of it, and I just take each leaf and separate it and make sure that I wash. And I typically wash my greens and other vegetables in a solution of water and vinegar. And then I love my salad spinner because it's so great to put them in there and dry them. But yeah, I always think it's a good thing when you find an insect, because that means that there aren't a ton of pesticides. When you get produce that looks perfect and clean, oftentimes you have to wonder what they've used to get it that way. So, but I can see why that would impact you, Dilip, and kind of turn you off to it.
So Susan's post reminds me, I forgot to mention or have a little thing for my colleagues to put up, is that we do plant-based immersions, and Susan was our helper. So Susanna was there, and Susanna and I did an immersion together, and Susan was a big help. So if you're interested in coming, we haven't set the dates for this summer, but it's a great opportunity to spend 3 days, and we'll tell you all about plant-based eating, give you tons of books and movies. We cook all your meals for you and send you home with lots of treats. So feel free you can reach any of us. If you want to reach, for example, Shobha, then it would be Shobha, SHOBHA, at somanycooks.com. If you want to reach Carolyn, it's Carolyn at somanycooks.com. So feel free to contact me if you want information on the immersion. So Susan, who's an amazing helper and just a font of wisdom as well. I recently had grilled lemon as a garnish at a restaurant and really liked it. Which of these recipes? So my recipe would have done well with the grilled lemon. I like when you grill foods, you bring the sugars to the surface, you caramelize them. So to me, when you grill lemon, it would go really well with something like, grilled tofu or something fibrous. Maybe, one of my signature dishes is lime marinated jerk seitan with jerk seasoning. And so I use, I marinate in lime. Does anybody else have any suggestions about grilled lemon? Lemon, also dried lemons you can get at Middle Eastern restaurants. You can make some really nice lemonade. Jeanette had a comment. She missed Mark's grapefruit cake. So it looked like it was like segmented. It looked almost like an angel cake, I would say. I don't remember if he put a picture in the recipe document, but you can always, after the show's done, I don't think it's posted immediately, but within a few minutes, you can rewind to his segment. And thanks, Judith, for watching. Thanks for your nice comment. Here's a long question. Jody Lynn, Susan, I recently learned from Timmerie Hagenberger, the nutrition professor, that we can freeze lemons and limes whole. That makes it easy to use them one by one as needed. Just thaw and they are ready to go. They'll actually give more juice after being frozen. I didn't know that. Timmerie explains how the cell walls burst and that yields more juice. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that. I would have removed the peel, but I'll try that. That sounds really good. Let's see. Okay, we'll do the drawing in a couple minutes. Let's ask maybe one or two more questions. Let's see. Carolyn, a question on Freekeh. So it was thanks to Mark that I bought Freekeh. I had never bought it before. It's available at our co-op and grocery store. And and by the way, Judith, you don't. So in our Food for Life classes, we encourage you to be plant-based, and then organic is something else. In my family, we try to buy all organic, and I would suggest that citrus is best organic. There's been reports about citrus farmers who develop all these problems based on what they spray on their fields. And if you're zesting, I think I would buy organic. I buy all organic. Oh, good, Jeanette. I hope you come to our immersion. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Definitely email me, dillip@somanycooks.com, and I'll give you more information. So, Carolyn, the question for you is I've made freekeh a couple of times, and my family doesn't like it. So maybe it's me. Probably it's me, I guess. So I know a little bit about cooking, but my family hasn't enjoyed it. I thought my freekeh was okay. I didn't love it. I liked it, but my wife and daughter didn't.
What did they not like? Was it the smoky flavor that it
Yeah,
has?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so just use bulgur instead, because freekeh, I don't think you can avoid that smoky flavor because it's, like I said, it's parched, roasted. They roast it. So when I was cooking it earlier, it smelled, I thought, is it burning? And then I looked, it was not burning. It was just that smoky smell that it has. So if they don't like the smoke flavor, there's really no way to avoid that with freekeh because by the nature of freekeh, they roast it. So, yeah, you're just going to have to go with bulgur or some other whole grain if they don't like it. But I kind of like that smoky flavor. So
We'll give the last chance for any final questions. I did want to mention, see if this comes up on the screen. Well, I guess it doesn't. So I was going to show you. Well, you can kind of see it. Our next show is in February, and it's so many warming foods. And so ginger, for example, is a warming food. And with unless you're, my family just came back from Australia, so unless you're in Australia or in the southern hemisphere, it's wintertime. Even in Alabama, you had 17 degrees. And so did we. And 14.
14 a few weeks
It was
ago.
funny. We
Yeah.
had 17 degrees here, which occasionally happens, but not commonly in North Carolina. I visited my family in Connecticut. It was warmer. It was like in the 30s, and I said, I can handle this. Coming
That's
from
crazy.
17 in North Carolina.
We got down to 14, which is why I had to buy parsley because all of my parsley in the backyard just froze and is gone. And I tried covering it, didn't work. It was so windy, it just blew the covers off. So I lost all my parsley.
Let's do
well.
the drawing. It's getting close to top of the hour. I know Shobha has an engagement at the top of the hour. We'll do the drawing, and then if anybody wants, we can stick around for just a couple more minutes. Okay, looks
I
like
do, Dilip, have a quick comment. So
Okay.
Jody Lynn made a comment. She didn't ask a question. So
she doesn't get at it.
if
So
she
Jody
wants
Lynn, turn it into a
ask the
question,
question
and then we will add you to the drawing.
before we
And
start.
Jeanette, I'm in Massachusetts and hasn't even gone below 30 yet.
Oh my goodness.
So, Jody, can you turn, because that's such a wise thing you shared with us, such a nice thing about
Yeah.
the lemons and limes. So please ask a question, even if it's a trivial question, so we can include you in our drawing. Anne, okay. Anne has a question. To make sausage links, could cooked freekeh substitute? What do you think, Carolyn?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you can probably substitute cooked freekeh for any cooked whole grain. So if you have a recipe that calls for cooked brown rice, cooked quinoa, just substitute an equal amount of cooked freekeh. It should work just fine.
Okay, let's do the drawing. How many people do we have, Suzanne? And go ahead and read the names. And
What is Anne's last name?
she didn't. It just says
Okay,
Anne.
it just says Anne.
And
Okay.
what we'll do is let's assume Anne wins, for example, then we'll ask you to acknowledge, and then we'll ask you to email us, and I'll go ahead and put it on here. While you're reading the names, I'll type this.
Okay, so we have 11 names. One is Infinite Love and Gratitude. 2, Kathy Sabo. I apologize if I mispronounce your names. Linda Pittman. Eileen Garnett. Lee Hay. Jeanette Willard. Oops, Kataja, is that right? Yes. Susan Hanson, Susan Francis, Judith Henry, and Anne.
So what number is that? How many numbers?
11.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to random.org, and I'm going to say generate a random number from 1 to 11. I teach math, so offline, if you're interested, I'll tell you why. It's almost impossible to have a truly random number, but we'll do the best we can. It's called a pseudo-random number. And I'll do it. This won't count, just so you get an idea. So I'm going to run this, and I got the number 10. So if this were for real, who's the 10th name on your list, Susanna?
Judith Henry.
So Judith would have won. We're going to do this for real in a second, and then we would award Judith. Should we give the Zester first or the magazine, the Veg News subscription? The Zester is a really good one. I'm thinking I should get one like that. And the Veg News is a very nice magazine that talks about all things, vegan, about events, new products, all sorts of things. It doesn't have a specific focus on health, but does focus on veganism. I guess we'll do let's do the magazine first this time. Okay. So if you win, we'd like you to acknowledge it here, and we'd like you to, ideally, before we sign off, send us an email. So once I get on my phone, I'll say, yep, we know how to reach you. Don't post your address here, but we do need your address to get it to you. So when you win, if you win, send an email to dillip@somanycooks.com. Oh yeah, Katya was one of the winners too. Katya.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
So if you win, then email and just say I won the magazine. I'll also write down, or I won the citrus zester. So let's go ahead and pick the winner of the. Did I say magazine first?
Yes.
And the other rule is if you win, you don't get to win twice. So for example, if John wins and then we roll his number again, we'll roll yet again. So maybe next time Mary will win. Okay. All right, here goes. It's actually a really good musical group, John and Mary. If you like 10,000 Maniacs, have you heard of them, Susanna? John and Mary? Outstanding.
I have not.
Yes, I'm surprised.
I'll have to look them up.
Look them up. They're really good. All right.
I've heard of Peter, Paul, and Mary, but not.
Yeah, I've heard of
Mary.
them.
Oh, Katja is saying not Katasha, please. Sorry about that.
Okay, Kasha.
Katja, Katja, but it's pronounced like a Y.
Okay.
She's a friend of mine. I know her. All right, so let's roll 1 to 11. I got 10 again. So who was the winner? Who's 10?
Judith Henry.
So Judith, you win the magazine. So could you confirm? Confirm that you got that, and that you will send an email to dillip@somanycooks.com and copy Karen at somanycooks.com. So Judith Henry, please confirm. You're the one who asked about whether you should buy citrus organic. So hopefully you. Yay! Okay, good, Judith. So please remember to email us. And then the citrus zester, let's do another roll. If it's 10 again, which would be 3 in a row, we'll roll one more time, or as many times till we don't get a 10. The winner is number 3. So who's 3?
Linda Pittman.
Linda
Yay.
Pittman, congratulations. I recognize your name. You're a regular, so I'm glad that Linda Pittman. So you got the zester. So Linda, can you please confirm? No, Judith, we have to do it in order. So, oh, you mean the other magazine, Judith? If you're already getting Veg News, we can switch it for Vegan Journal if that's what you're asking, but we can't give you the zester. So Judith's getting the magazine subscription, and Linda is getting the zester. So Linda, can you confirm, and can you please email us? And with that, we're past top of the hour. Great, Linda. So please email. I wanted to just, good, I'm glad, Linda. I wanted to start to wrap up. Shobha, you have, I think, a pretty firm engagement, so why don't you go ahead and feel that you have to sign off. We'll be done in like 2 minutes, but if you can't hang on, please, I don't want to keep you from your other engagement. But I wanted to just make a couple comments about our next show. So our next show is just a few weeks away, and so many warming foods. And then the kids in the kitchen. The kids in the kitchen are my daughter, and then Cody, her 3 girls, and then there's another cook in the kitchen and Food for Life instructor, PCM Food for Life instructor, Ella in Rhode Island. Her son and daughter are kids in the kitchen, and they're presenting sweet foods without sugar. So they do a great job. They connect well with young ones. So if you have young ones in your life, please watch. We try to publish the recipes early, and we know there's some kids around the world who cook with us, which is really cool. Okay. All right. Okay, I see, Judith. You won before. Well, now what we'll do, Judith, is we'll extend your subscription a year. How's that sound? All right. Does anybody else have any parting comments? Well, thanks for watching. It's always a delight doing these shows. We don't know what the topic is for March yet, or April. So any of you guys who have ideas of things you'd like us to see, one person had a really nice idea about practical application of nutrition, not just to make us healthy, but other things. Yeah, Judith. So when you email, remind us that we'll just extend your subscription. That's an intriguing idea. Nancy's going to add that to our list of topics. We maintain a list of topics, and we have a long list. We've been doing this for 2.5 years, and there's tons more ideas we have. So if you think of anything you'd like us to do, just email it to us. And Katja, after I was done cooking, I noticed you had some really good questions about oil. Let's very quickly take that. So why do we talk about limiting oil? Oil is pure fat. We recommend 10% fat calories, and there are other credible people in the space who go higher, maybe 12%, 15, but whatever your number is, there's this much fat you're going to eat. And in my mind, I'd rather eat chocolate than olive oil. So olive oil does not have much by way of nutrition. It's pure fat. Katja had mentioned, but it's in the Mediterranean diet and it's healthy. So there was an article in like 1974, and I share this with my students. Katja, you might want to take one of my Food for Life classes. I teach them in Chapel Hill and in Durham and in Cary. There was an article that talked about what was called the Mediterranean diet, and it had better health outcomes. But it was funded by the olive oil industry. There were subsequent studies done which were not funded by the olive oil industry. They said, what happens if we take all this goodness? By the way, Americans aren't that active, and we add activity and we get rid of the olive oil, and the results were much better. So it's not true that olive oil is a health food. Olive oil, if you feel you have to use it in small quantities, you use it because you have to, not because it's contributing to health. I find not using oil at all gives me room for other fats. And so that's why I would strongly recommend against using oil. And if you email me, because I know you know how to reach me, well, you know all know how to reach me, Dilip@somanycooks.com. I'd be glad to send you some references about why oil. And does anybody else want to really quickly talk about oil? Nothing else? Okay.
I have.
Yeah,
a
go on.
So oil, like you were mentioning, I love the way you put it, Dilip. I should, incorporate that in my talks as well. But oil also has very little nutritive value, stripped of fiber, stripped of vitamins, stripped of minerals, stripped of phytonutrients, every single thing. It's extracted fat that you can get in, and our bodies, human bodies, need very small amount of fats, and that can be achieved by eating small amounts of corn, sesame seeds, mustard powder. All of these have oils in them, including brown rice. And so that's where we get our daily quota of oils from, and that's all we need. That's all human bodies need. Yeah.
And Timmery is making a good point, and nuts are slightly controversial, but not that controversial. So in Food for Life, we ask people to be careful with nuts. If you're a recovering heart patient, you definitely want to be very, very careful with nuts. Don't snack on nuts. But there's a lot of evidence that a little bit of nuts may be good for you. In Food for Life, we still caution against nuts, and if you're eating them, small quantities. But I would definitely take nuts any day over oil, but don't snack on them. Don't sit before a sporting event and have this big bowl of nuts.
Especially roasted and salted, they're extremely addictive.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Right. Oil's not a whole food. That's true. Right. And then here's an interesting question, Judith. What is the difference between plant-based and vegan? So plant-based is somebody who eats mainly plants, eats from our power plate once a couple weeks, eats a hamburger or something, like not a soy hamburger. They might call themselves, quote unquote, plant predominant or kind of plant-based. So it's an ambiguous term. Vegan is not ambiguous. It means no animal products. What we advocate, and we have tons of evidence that this is the best thing we can do for our health, for the environment, for the animals for sure, is to be vegan, whole food, plant-based with limited fat. Watch the oils. Don't add oils. And in our cooking classes, we show you how to do it without oils. Yeah. So sprinkle on greens. Yep. Okay. Okay, and Kathy, good suggestion of a show about leftovers. So let's see if I can do one last thing here, if I can find it. So okay, so that's it from our side. Does anybody? And I know I asked again, but any final comments? Oh, please address my black pepper and turmeric question. Shobha, do you have a moment? Eileen had a question about black pepper and turmeric. Let's bring that question up again.
Yeah, I can add for that. Yeah.
Yeah, here it is. And the question is, I didn't see black pepper added to the dishes with turmeric. Is black pepper added with turmeric good to have it activate better for pain relief?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and also making turmeric bioavailable. That's the reason we do that. I actually drink warm water with a hint, just a hint, pinch of turmeric and a pinch of black pepper every morning as I get up. So yes, absolutely, you're right. Sometimes in Indian cooking we use a lot of turmeric, but we don't necessarily add black pepper to our dishes. But some people do add. Now that we know that it makes things bioavailable, we do add just a hint of it. Just a pinch goes a long way.
Roasted nuts, Kathy's asking, why do they taste better? So what you can do is put on a cast iron pan and be very careful they burn easily. The flavors are better. It's not so much in the case of nuts caramelization. Does anybody else know why when you roast nuts, they do taste better? Pine nuts or
Philip,
cashews?
isn't it?
Yeah, Susan. I don't know why.
Oh, isn't it because the oils start to release? Isn't that why they taste better? That's what I thought. And also, like with sesame seeds, when you roast them and they roasted, you're able to get more nutrients from them. So roasting the nuts and seeds releases some of the oils, improves the taste, and also I think helps you absorb more of the nutrients.
Well, we thank you. The conversation goes on. Just because we're signing off, you can continue to post on social media. You can ask questions. The stream that we are just about to end will be there forever, I guess. And you can always, after the fact, add comments, questions, and reach any of us. We're very happy to help. And I just feel so privileged to be a very small part of Physicians Committee. Oh, and Lee, you haven't received your cookbook. The reason you haven't received your cookbook is it was not yet published one by Kim Campbell. It was about to be released. And so I think it came out like 2 weeks ago. So if you don't receive it in another month, would you be so kind as to email us and we'll rectify that? So I'm sorry. Oh, hi, Wanda. Good to see you here. Dr. Furman was recently talking about roasting them lightly ourselves is much better than purchasing them already roasted. I agree with you. If you can do it fresh, then it's just from a taste point of view, going to be better. Timmery, my chai spice blend includes both turmeric and black pepper. Roasting nuts contributes advanced glycation end products. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, lots of great stuff here. Okay. All right. So thanks everybody again for watching. So see you online and see you live just in a few weeks in February. I can't wait. I haven't decided what I'm making, but it's probably gonna be something with ginger, and maybe some sort of a stew or something. I don't know. Maybe I'll have a way of integrating some citrus as well.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas. Yeah.
You do? Good.
Yes.
Thanks everybody.
Okay.
We appreciate your watching. Take care.
Bye.
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 So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.